I'm ready. You got the you've got the.
I've got the clicker.
All right.
Make sure that was in.
Yep.
We are full Memorex.
We're filming right now?
We are filming right now.
Okay. Okay, everybody. I'm going to give a presentation now to pretty much nobody unless anyone trickles in. And I'm giving this presentation come hell or high water because I was going to give this presentation this morning right after the eclipse because this is one of the most important topics, I believe. A lot of people kept asking about this over and over. I'm calling this topic Grassroots Disclosure, Nothing is Stopping Us. And this was a presentation that Roger was going to give with me, and we were going to go on a lot of different things, but discussing everything that he's got in his experience on this topic. But Roger obviously didn't hardly sleep last night, and now he's super busy also uploading other videos and editing videos and things. So Roger can't be here right now. So I'm going to give this presentation to pretty much nobody, and see if anybody hears me from a distance. That'll be fun. Okay, this is super important. So this is a picture of me when I did the protests at the Schriever Air Force Base. This is the video that Corey Good was talking about recently. This is a screenshot from that. That's the kind of slide, or that's the kind of sign that we were using. I'll talk about that near the end of the presentation, the idea of activism in the sense of demonstrations, which is a very small portion of what I recommend people get involved in, because this is like really nervous situation for a lot of people. Don't want to necessarily be looking like you're an opponent to something. You want to have a nice, friendly group to start with, to feel comfortable in. So that's what I'm going to talk about first. So what are we after, really? Now, the Full Disclosure Project mission statement, we wrote this together like 2015. No, it was early 2016 we wrote this. Full Disclosure Project is a nonprofit collective of transparency advocates focused on the release of advanced and improperly classified technologies that could immediately bring an end to the needless suffering of many, as well as an increased level of peace, prosperity, and equality for people around the world. And our main objectives are to make the mainstream public aware of the strong evidence that highly advanced technologies are currently being suppressed, work to release this technology fully, freely, and immediately, and seek a full disclosure of all unacknowledged programs. Now, we wrote this in 2016, but since that time, we've made a decision. We're very likely going to start a nonprofit organization, and we will be revising this statement, and we'll make sure that it fits a slightly broader mission, and we also want to make sure that we have a clear vision statement that includes a spiritual objective for people, that they can understand this is about the growth of the human spirit in some ways. This is not just about technology. However, starting with technology is extremely crucial because this is something that's understandable, it's approachable, and if we can get this, we get everything else in very short order. So why does disclosure need to be from the grassroots level? Well, we know it hasn't worked yet from what people are suggesting on the national level, but when we get together as a group in small numbers, people can start to break out of their shells because they feel comfortable. It's like a friendly thing. We break through our programming more quickly when we're meeting in person. And doing activities in the physical world also is kind of a form of advertising, like a billboard. You know, it's not just somewhere boxed away on the internet, it's something that's out there in the open, people can come and watch you. And it's human nature to feel better when we're with friends. And there's also an exponential power in numbers that we can obtain. So more people working, the better, for sure. Just sitting on your computer is not necessarily going to contribute to the overall energy of this shift. Depends on what you're doing. So I recommend finding friends immediately. If anyone out there has not found friends local to them, at least 2 to 3 friends who they can talk to about disclosure, about the ET subject. You got to do that as soon as possible. So go to meetup.com right now. If you have never done it before, check out meetup.com. Find and visit various groups that look like higher consciousness groups. Doesn't matter how weird it sounds, just go there, start looking through. Also, to find groups, you can also look at local community event boards. Sometimes there's online boards, sometimes you have to look at actual like New Age centers, healing centers, spiritual gift shops or whatever. You'll find interesting stuff at those places related to where people are gathering in your town. It doesn't have to be related to the shop. There's many creative things people are doing already all around town that people would love to be involved in if they knew about it. There's just not very easy to find out about these things. Meetup.com is usually the best. So I would say find more friends like you right now locally. Have at least one 1 to 2 friends for sure you know who would attend meetings with you if you're going to start a meeting. And I would say, in order to get acquainted with others, I know a lot of people have a hard time opening up with topics. What you do is you start out just asking things like, what's your journey? What was your path to get to where you are, and get to what you enjoy? What interests you? Ask what their most profound spiritual experiences were. This really opens up people a ton, and you'll find out very quickly if ET was in their story if you seem relatively open-minded to begin with. And also let others know that the ET subject had a role in your awakening, and that way you can figure out how much they already know about the ET topic, and if it really triggers something in them that they're very passionate about it. And then if you do find people like that, latch on to them and make sure they're your friends. And also ask about Gaia.com. Have you heard about Gaia.com? Have you seen Cosmic Disclosure? Have you seen Wisdom Teachings? That kind of thing is really easy to say right now. Eventually express your interest to your friends in starting a local extraterrestrial disclosure group, if none exists, and give them follow-up steps. Make sure people have a way to contact you. Make sure you can contact other people after you go to these groups and you do make connections like this. It's an important step. And then obviously decide what kind of group you want to create. Talk with your friends, see what they're interested in. Pick a title for the group. Something like ET Disclosure and Contact is what I chose, because we also did the CE5 meditations in our group. We've been doing it for months. Well, actually, we're doing it for years. We do it once a month. And then some people like Roger were suggesting Full Disclosure Now is a group title. Meet Earth Cosmic Neighbors is a group on Facebook. They were starting meetup groups around the country. I recommend something like ET Disclosure, because that's just kind of exactly direct about what you're talking about. Or you could, whatever you want to talk about, you can put that in the title. And to a certain extent, you have to decide what your meetings should be about. If you want to do a lot of story sharing, that's always a good way to get things going. Sharing knowledge. You can give presentations, but I highly recommend having a group that is very, very discussion oriented, because you have to let other people give input. You have to let the discussion be free flowing, not just coming from one person. If you really want to network and get the community integrated and active together, it doesn't work so well with the groups that I've seen, where there's just a lecture after lecture after lecture. That's helpful in some ways, but people kind of like get bored of that, and they want to be able to engage. You got to give people opportunities to talk. And remember, you can do more and more for disclosure after you start to grow your group and your circle grows bigger and bigger. So don't worry if not much is happening with just 5 people, if you're meeting with a small number of people. So obviously meetup.com, I'm saying, is the best way to get a sheer number up to a certain level, because meetup.com, you get all types of people looking, and there's so many categories. It's really great. You can type in a bunch of like spirituality, metaphysics, and then anybody who has already liked those categories will find out about your group very quickly. So for sure people who are on Meetup are going to be hearing about your group when you post it. I created a website, newearth.network, is a free alternative to meetup.com, which I would recommend everyone go use also right now, because everyone who's listening to this is at least going to be able to go find each other, even if I don't have that site built up as much as meetup.com right now. And I would say make sure to have a very, very good description on your meetup group to start with. Make sure to post links to evidence, like the Disclosure Project. It's interesting, I put C. SETI Web in the slide, and that was taken down since I made this slide. For some reason, so one of Stephen Greer's YouTube channels seems to have gone down, but his main channel is S. Disclosure now. They have tons and tons of interviews, just like hard evidence kind of testimony. It's not woo-woo stuff, and that's the kind of thing I would recommend linking to get people thinking, hey, maybe there is evidence and I just haven't seen it on TV. Maybe it's really good. So I would say mention spiritual intentions in some way in your description of your group, because that will latch on to a lot of other people. A lot of people will be intuitively driven to your group because you've been using spiritual language just a little bit. It doesn't have to be all spiritual. Even if you just have one paragraph about how we value the spiritual progress of man and pursuing love and forgiveness, that's part of our mission. That will really resonate with people if you make sure to keep that in your description. I would say you could wait till 25 members maybe show up on your meetup page before you start to host an event, if you're not confident with starting with just friends, if you don't have friends that you know who are going to come. Because usually on meetup.com it's like, most people who see an event don't really show up to your event. But and there's also a problem where like usually like or very often only half the people who RSVP to a group that's free to an event will actually attend that event. And it's just the nature of the way people use meetup.com. They just kind of like, shopping for something. But don't get discouraged just because you start a meetup group and people don't attend, because the numbers build very quickly. And as soon as people know you and they want to be your friend, then they will definitely attend your meetup groups repeatedly, because this is something people are just dying to have as a meetup group, dying to have a way to talk about the ET subject, and there's just not enough groups. It's just people are scared to form groups around this topic. There's too much of a taboo. We need to break the taboo. We need to get groups going all around the country. So if you have to, and there's other groups, maybe there's like a really massive group and you've met some of the people there and they're like really excited about that group, even if it's not related to ETs, you can say, hey, I'd like to host a meeting about ETs with your group. You can become a co-organizer of the group and just say, I'll just take full responsibility for a meeting if you let me do it with your group. So that's a convenient way to get bootstrapped into another community very quickly. Always be seeking to network with other groups and expand your connections amicably, because there are so many smart people in just everywhere doing all types of great groups. So just keep going to those groups too, keep meeting people and keep networking, and you can really develop your own ET disclosure network locally much quicker. And make sure you're very consistent in whatever you offer to do. I would say finding venues is a very significant topic too. Like we use a library. We found that a particular public library seems to work well, and people also like feel like, oh, hey, this is not like a crazy group because they're actually in a library. It's not like, sometimes people have trouble with like a church, and sometimes people aren't comfortable offering their homes. Although those are options, very often there's many types of facilities you can find for free to use for groups. I wouldn't say rule out meeting homes, but I would say probably don't do it to start with. You don't really know what's going to happen. But you don't really have to be afraid generally. You usually want a room that supports at least 8 to 10 people for your first meeting. Sometimes restaurants, coffee shops works fine. And also you want to look at other meetup groups' histories to figure out what their venues have been in the past. See if they've had really neat venues that you hadn't thought of. And that's usually really reliable to figure out what's a good meeting venue. Where are the people meeting with their meetup groups? Remember that many types of public facilities generally have websites with a web page that lets you reserve spaces. You can reserve park spaces. You can reserve community centers, even libraries, museums, churches, and schools. All these options are something to look into. Look at their websites, see if there's something there, and call them up if you have to. Even the Chamber of Commerce or Tourism Board in your local town might have more information about good venues. But I'm just telling you right now, coffee shops, restaurants, libraries seem to be the easiest. Never underestimate the wisdom of the elders in your community. You're going to get a lot of great feedback. Always expect the unexpected feedback. Always be asking for feedback. Venues, timing, meeting format. Ask about how you're doing, what other people recommend, especially people who've been doing it for a while, going to a lot of groups and stuff. Ask what people like to do, and always ask, what they like about your meetings. And I would recommend, as far as meeting, at least meet monthly. Don't ever say we're going to do just a weekly meeting, because generally people are not able to meet weekly consistently, but they are able to meet monthly consistently. So I would say people aren't going to get worn down too much if you start with a monthly thing. Even though you can do more than one type of thing, I would say I'll always have at least one strong big thing monthly, like a discussion group monthly. And I would say make sure people are given clear information in your event descriptions about parking, clear information about any needs for donations if you do have any costs. I would say don't charge, directly charge money. Say a donation is recommended if you need a donation. I mean, sometimes it's better not to bother with that. And I would say don't stress the content of your meetings. If you're going to host a meeting, just throw all your apprehensions out the window, because people just love to have a chance to talk about this kind of stuff. All types of weird topics that they're interested in that they haven't had anybody who's open to talk to about. So you don't have to worry so much about being really professional and having a great structured meeting, because people bring the material of the meeting. It's not you. It's much better to use your intuition to just let things happen. However, there are some things you want to make sure you do. You want to make sure that there's you specify at the beginning of the meeting. This is the general thing I tend to do. I'm going to let everyone share their stories. We're going to share our names first, and then we're going to see if there's any particular topics that we're interested in talking about and going deeper on. And if you have anything about like recent events, like the news about the Nazca mummy or something like that, that's always good to throw in there. Make sure you have a little bit of something to get people realizing this is substantive discussion. This is really exciting that we're in the thick of this kind of process where everybody's working towards disclosure, and we're able to be a part of it. You could ask questions to get people going when we have a meeting, like what drew you to the group? What interests you about the UFO subject? And that kind of thing opens people up a little bit more right away to explaining what their thoughts are on the topic, and then you can figure out where the common threads are and continue talking about those. Watch for a core team to form. This is kind of important for doing more than just a simple meeting. And this is something that I learned over time, is that if you have enough meetings, you'll start to recognize some people are way more into it than others, and the people who are really into it, eventually you want to make sure you contact them privately and say, I'm interested in meeting with you privately, and make sure that you guys can talk about what should we do besides the regular group, and make sure that they feel a part of the planning process, and develop a core team this way. Make sure that you have a team of people who can help guide you, because it's very often hard to just do this as alone, to really get a force to be reckoned with together if you're just organizing everything alone. Make sure you have co-organizers or people who are at least willing to talk to you about the format of the group, the structure of the group, and other types of meetings, events, and potentially even like activism type of things, demonstrations, anything you can think of that you're all interested in doing. And yeah, you can brainstorm at these other meetings that you might want to have for the core team. Lots of brainstorming is pretty important. And make sure that you have a way to keep people up to speed on all these complex subjects that relate to disclosure. And I'm going to dovetail into a few things here with this idea. But definitely remember that some people might not be believing what you believe. And so always clarify that others are free to have their own beliefs, and that's not, we don't have to have one type of topic. We don't have to talk about Corey Goode and expect you to believe Corey Goode. Although if people are interested in that's what people can talk about. That's not an issue. It shouldn't be an issue. Talk about whatever you want to talk about, and just kind of make sure that the group is relatively balanced, and who's allowed to talk and how long they're allowed to talk for, that kind of thing. Figure out areas you need to agree to disagree on, and make sure you're explicit about that. Okay, maybe we'll have to agree to disagree on that. You can mention your favorite videos, collect email addresses from people, because meetup.com doesn't give you their email address. Collect the email addresses from people, and then send out more links via email. Whenever somebody mentions a link, hey, I think everyone should watch this, you can send it out by email really quick. Something like MailChimp.com works great for that. Easily sending out a large number of emails, or you just use BCC on your email client or program on your computer or whatever. I would say start a Facebook page eventually, or a blog, to help share more information, let more people contribute when you're not having a meeting, just online. Share books with people, figure out who reads the most and who has read the most already, and always be talking with them about books. Share DVDs and burn DVDs. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. And of course, be accepting of all beliefs. Recognize that a group consensus may form, and sadly some will not be able to continue with the group as a result of their sacred cows, because some people just can't deal with certain things you might be talking about, and that's okay. Some people will not be able to go along with the group, and you shouldn't get hung up if somebody that you thought was going to be a good team member maybe decided that it wasn't right for them. But that's just how it goes. So I want to talk a little bit about DVD videos. So obviously we know it's for most people it's easy to watch videos on the computer, but for some people it's much easier to watch DVD videos. And this is partly because it's more accessible to some people who maybe don't have the right hardware, they don't have something to plug into their TV, and they don't enjoy watching something on a computer screen for a long period of time. People who plug something into the DVD player that's connected to a TV are much more likely to feel comfortable sitting there for like an hour and really soaking in information. So there's definitely advantages to DVDs. I would call it the lowest common denominator for sharing basic educational information. And it's also really cool that DVDs are like a tangible reminder. Oh, look at that, it's sitting over there. I should watch that. I never watched that yet. It's like you have to do something with it. You can't just be totally out of your mind because it's somewhere physically around you. So that's another advantage. And also DVDs can be re-gifted. That's so critical. You can give out DVDs to one person, and then they just go spreading to all that person's friends and family. And it's amazing how much you can spread information just with a few DVDs. But obviously you do want to make sure that you're encouraging people to check out YouTube videos if that's much more convenient for them, and let them know how to do that too. So I'm going to talk a little bit about making DVDs because this is such a big part of what I do with my local group in Colorado Springs. I usually give out like 10 things every month, but like 8 of them I've already given out. So most people don't take those 8. But since I've been doing this so long, I'm getting really good at it. I've made a website, disclosureinstitute.org. You can go there and download the DVDs that I've been producing, and also the flyers we've been using, like at the protests we did. But one thing I want to point out is that there's like a 2-step process to download DVDs because they're like 4 gigabyte files. It takes a long time to download, and it's kind of expensive for somebody hosting large files. So you use BitTorrent to make it so it's easy to share in a peer-to-peer network. So I recommend learning a little bit about BitTorrent because it's kind of the grassroots way to share very large files. It's really essential kind of tool, but it's not that hard. I would recommend go to get the program called BitTorrent, and that's the one that is very reliable, works on every platform. It's not going to spam your computer or anything. You just download that program, and then as soon as you go to disclosureinstitute.org, you can click on the torrent links, which then downloads the DVD ISO file. The DVD ISO file is what you can click on your computer, and then that burns it onto a DVD as long as you put in a blank DVD into a DVD burner. There are also programs that make it easier to burn DVDs, such as a program that will let you, many programs will let you say, I want to burn 10 DVDs, and then as soon as one is done, the tray opens, take out that DVD, put it down, take another one, put it back in, close it, and then it starts burning the next one. So that's like the quickest way I've found with only one drive to burn 10 DVDs fairly quickly. Just look for the open drive, pop in a new one. So I've burned like thousands of DVDs this way now, given out thousands of DVDs over the last 10 years. More so in the last 2 years since I started this group, and the DVDs are really awesome for people. And obviously for demonstrations, I would say it's extremely helpful. Okay, so remember with the things you're recommending, you want to make sure you have a kind of variety of materials for people to get educated with, because some people are more interested in just the nuts and bolts ET and UFO evidence. Some people are just curious about like spiritual metaphysical stuff. Some people are going to be really benefited by hearing about consciousness scientists and recognizing there is something that validates their suspicions about the nature of psychic phenomenon. And some people are just curious, okay, tell me what's going on for the bigger picture. So I've got like 14 DVDs that usually I would say are good groundwork for people to recognize something through all these categories. Some DVDs I give out are basically like 2 hours, and some of them actually have like 6 hours of content. Like, for example, the Citizens Hearing on Disclosure is on there. That was 5 days of testimony given in front of a number of former congressmen. And so I managed to compress it so that one full day of testimony, like 6 hours of content is compressed onto one DVD. And I don't think that's been done before, and I think that's really helpful to get a lot of really good information out to people. And you know, USB DVD burners, if you don't have a DVD burner, it's only like 25 bucks. You can plug in a DVD burner drive into your computer very, very easily. And then there's two different types of DVDs. There are blank DVDs. You can buy DVD minus R's, DVD plus R's. It doesn't matter which kind you get. You can buy 100 of them for 25 bucks, 25 cents per DVD. It's not that bad. I recommend it. Okay, labeling, I just use regular mailing labels. It's really simple. DVD sleeves, you need to make sure you buy what's called DVD sleeves when you also start burning DVDs. And you can get 1,000 of those for $20 on Amazon too. It's super cheap. So this is a really convenient process. So I'm going to move into what happens in your group. Generally, you want to make sure that people feel comfortable pretty much no matter what's going on. Expect people to have trouble getting along, but remind people that our ability to get along is the most important thing, and that we do have to agree to disagree. And if you're emotionally unaffected by the conflict that you might come across in your groups, that's just a great example for others to also be unemotional about anybody who's having a hard time with a topic or a person or whatever. It's usually something that you can work through. Just don't hold any sacred cows yourself. Don't hold on to something so tightly that you say, well, I know for sure I'm right. Be willing to say, I'm not totally sure. I can never be totally sure. And that helps people appreciate that you're open and then they feel comfortable in your group. Always be accepting of others regardless of anything else going on, and peace will inevitably return to your group if you have a difficult situation rise. Always be flexible with people, people's time, and thank people for helping you if they do. Be ready for change in your group. Be flexible to allow anybody to leave the group, take a break. Don't get stressed if somebody says, well, I just can't do it right now. Young people can seem more motivated and energized, but old people can seem more dependable and consistent. This is something I've noticed. So don't worry if if somebody's flaky on you. It's just the nature of humanity right now. People have a lot going on. It's difficult to make sure you have a good team that's always going to be there for you. But when you do find those people who are always there for you, just remember, make sure that you can contact them privately and even meet with them privately, because they might be good people to do more planning with about what really could be a much more solid foundation of an organization that could really move things in a bigger direction than just a few meetings. I don't know what that could look like for you. For my group, it turned into things like demonstrations at the Air Force Base and things like that. There's other ideas I'll talk about towards the end on that topic. So just respect everyone's paths and don't make any conclusions based on ages or types of people who may be attending your meetings. Recognize some people out there are insanely intuitive. They spend a lot of their time meditating. Sometimes retired people have a lot more time to meditate. And some people are professional psychics, and they just can see the energy. They know what's going to happen, and be open-minded to receive a lot of feedback from people who seem very intuitive. And always remember to ask for input, advice, and guidance. And sometimes you just have to go for it. This is a couple of pictures from the demonstrations we did at the Space Symposium, Colorado Springs. Well, these were 2 different years of the Space Symposium. Yeah, and we discuss what to put on signs. Usually something generic like acknowledged space program whistleblowers is usually something people will not freak out about. However, I do feel like using something a little bit more direct, talking about UFO lives are different at every level. Your hubris keeps UFO tech secret. I felt like I wanted to be a little bit more creative with signs and seeing if I get an emotional reaction out of people, because some people out there, such as the military contractors, do know that there are a lot of UFO-related lies go out there, and you do get some interesting reactions. Like when we did these protests, we had some people who definitely seemed like they knew what was going on, and we had even some 4-star generals walking by who gave some nods, and it was interesting. And it was, some people definitely stated things that were more direct, like, "Yeah, I know, and I'm the guy you're protesting about." That happened a couple times, and it's interesting. So there is a small chance, if you play your cards right, you can draw out whistleblowers too by targeting the right people during demonstrations. And in our group, we have had some people show up who definitely have very classified information and definitely didn't want it out public. So it's like you make your own little disclosure project group in your community if you're getting the right type of military people showing up. And yeah, I don't even know how much I should share about there's a lot that validates what's being said about people, testimony like Henry Deacon, Pete Peterson. There's a lot of good testimony out there from people who maybe just don't want to go public yet. And don't underestimate your own ability to do what David Wilcock does and just interview random insiders, because they're out there. Make the signs pretty big. That's my only recommendation right there. And then also, we try to use 2-sided signs because there were people looking at us 2 different directions. I recommend using shipping tubes for your sticks, because that's always legal no matter where you are. And I just attach it with steel wire. The cardboard, I just use cardboard boxes from Walmart. It's really easy to make signs. And I mentioned this earlier, you want to make sure you have a kind of solid inner circle to help you plan things, make sure they're going to be there for you. And also, different people are into different things. And some people are going to be more interested in meditation groups. Make sure you have a circle of friends that you can meet privately just for really good, intense meditation. In a home environment is usually pretty good. Usually there's a good atmosphere there. Some people are, nervous if you have like for the first thing you post up publicly, you say, "Meet at my home." So people generally don't like offering their home. But once you get to know people, then okay, this person is trustworthy. I can invite them to my home for a meditation thing, and that's a fun way to do it. And there's also some people more interested in activism, and don't bother the people who aren't interested in activism, because you can piss them off if you push too much in one direction or another. Yeah, don't be pushy ever, but make sure people who are interested, you give them opportunities to do more. Make sure people feel trusted and valued for what they can offer. So I'm going to point out one other idea quickly, which is that I was really inspired by the vision of unity in the community that Corey Good was pushing and promoting for a while there in 2016. And not only did I make the website New Earth Network to try to promote unity in the community, I realized I would want to start a group deliberately to unify other groups in my community. And for that, I created an idea that I called the New Earth Council. And I would recommend people who have done a group for a while consider this kind of thing. Once you've done enough networking in your town, consider reaching out to other local group organizers, spiritual leaders in your area, and ask them something like right here, which is what I sent out initially, this email to people, and I got a good response from a number of people. I said, "Inspired by calls for unity in the community as being essential to the stable foundation of a new earth, a vision that I believe we share in common, I am emailing to invite a handful of spiritual teachers and friends in Colorado Springs, including yourself, to work with me on forming a local New Earth Council experiment. Over time, I would like to learn more about your needs and challenges relating to operating effectively in our current society where many new concepts are often dismissed or understood. I am interested in meeting together to find out what we can do together that we could not do separately to bring in the New Earth consciousness faster and more smoothly. I'm interested in discussing ways to bring greater unity across all other New Earth-focused groups through networking, shared educational resources, and information tools, and anything else we can think of. As the Earth's transition could lead us to unexpected bumps in the road, the divisiveness of the election cycle being a possible example, this was before Trump was elected, I am interested in making sure we can support our community all as one through any confusing and catalytic events. I would like the unseen spiritual hierarchies that guide us already and have led us to know each other to have more of a representative presence within the visible earth plane, in the form of a decision-making or thought-joining collective. Some of these ideas probably could have been simplified, and you can do whatever you want. Obviously, I wrote this email to gauge interest, and we have a vision, a slightly longer mission and vision statement now on newearthcouncil.org, where I kind of expanded on some of these ideas. And we do meet monthly, and we do talk about all types of problems in the community relating to higher consciousness groups and the struggles that metaphysical practitioners go through. It's very similar to the struggle that people who are interested in extraterrestrials might go through, because there's a lot of difficulty dealing with friends and family on certain topics. And we can all kind of band together. And you give out DVDs to this group as well, and they'll be brought on board pretty quickly about the ET subject too. So I'm not quite sure how far we're going to go with this New Earth Council experiment I created, but we are planning on making a kind of shared spiritual center for more people in the area, and that's also a great way that we can distribute more information about disclosure and at least have a kind of headquarters for a lot of our operations. So I would recommend to stay very focused once you do start a group. Make sure you're meeting at least once a month with no exceptions. Always have separate discussions with those in your group and maintain friendly connections. Make sure that there is an opportunity for more people to come in and talk to you. Eventually create a mission and goal statements if you have other people who are more of an inner circle with you, and keep talking about them. And I would say the last thing about this is make sure that you can keep people's interest. Staying connected with your aware and awake friends makes it easy to stay interested yourself in maintaining your group. Plan creative activities beyond the usual activities if you have to. Go hiking if you have to make sure that the bond is strengthened. All types of things you can think of if this will help the group continue to grow and discuss more and more. Make sure others are inspired themselves, and share what excites you, and always ask others to share what they're interested in researching, and make sure that you're staying connected on the topics that are valuable. Learn and teach about current events, and keep recognizing and pointing out that there's too much going on for them to miss out on. And that really helps people appreciate that this is something I really want to be involved in. This is really important to keep going to the groups and keep the energy high. So that was all I had planned for that. That's my talk. Thanks.